Alright guys, welcome back to another video, and I'm excited today to talk about something that I've been thinking about for the last few months, and that is to get a new monitor for my PC setup. You guys know, if you guys watch this channel, I did a review on it. I originally had the LG C1 48-inch, and when I got that monitor, I knew it was going to be too big. Not because I didn't want it to be that big, but it just wasn't going to look well within the setup because, I don't know, I think it's off screen for you guys, but I have a TV right next to me that's like a 50-inch. And then I had this monitor right next to it. So when I put that 48-inch on the desktop, when people came in through the door, even when I came in, it looks like I just have two gigantic TVs right next to each other. So it kind of threw the room off because everyone always asks me, like, why are you using a TV for a monitor when you have a TV right next to it? It just looked way too big on the desktop. And even though I used it during games, and I still recommend the 48-inch if you have the room and it fits on your desk and stuff, because I had a fantastic time playing with it. I always wanted it to be slightly smaller. You know, when the 48-inch came out, I would have never gotten it if there was a size that was smaller, but that was all that was available in the OLED LG class. And here we are today. They came up with the 42-inch last year. It was always hard because it was $1,400, and I could never sell my old screen for $1,400, and I was essentially paying to just downgrade my screen size because the C2 isn't that much better. It's a little bit brighter and stuff than the C1, but it wasn't that much better, so I was essentially just paying to go smaller. So I never did it until the recent sales finally came out, and I got this monitor for $800, which is fantastic, and I was able to sell my old one for almost that same price, so that made more sense to me. And as you guys can see behind me, it is now on my desk, and I can't wait to talk to you guys about it, let you know what I think, and if it was worth, you know, switching out the old one. So let's go ahead and get into the video.
Gaming tech, eating brekkie is the gaming tech. Going for a brekkie is the gaming tech. Gaming tech is the gaming tech. Gaming techie.
Alright guys, so just to give you guys some context here on exactly what I have going on in my setup. So this is the 42-inch C2. So if you guys have been paying attention to my channel, if you watched me before, I did also have the C1 48-inch, and I love that thing for the past year, but it was a little bit too big for what I wanted. Now you can see the size of the desk here that I have and stuff like that and what I'm working with, but it wasn't even the size of the desk that bothered me because I tend to play a lot of story-based games and a lot of plenty of variety of games where I sometimes just use an Xbox controller because it doesn't make sense to play racing games and story-based games with a mouse and keyboard, so I usually play a lot of games like that, and that's easily for me to just take my chair and move a couple of inches back with no big deal. But what it was is it just took way too much space on my desk that I didn't even have room for speakers on the side. Like, the whole entire width of the screen went all the way up to here, so it took up this whole entire section here, and no room for speakers, and it was huge. And then it went all the way up here where it kind of covered the portion of the frames that I have up there as well, and it covered a little bit of that shelf that I have like up to here. So it just looked really big. And one of the other things that made it look really big too is the fact that I actually have a 50-inch, I believe is what this is, right next to it. And the reason I have that is I use this TV for games that require a lot more room because I have all of this room kind of sitting, you know, right here and stuff that I can play games like Xbox Connect games or Just Dance, you know, stuff like that that require a big TV, Rock Band and stuff like that. So I kind of have that just kind of portraying there, so it kind of looked huge right next to it, where people came into this room and they were like, it just looks like you have two TVs sitting next to each other. Why do you do that? As opposed to you have two monitors on your desk. So this 42-inch, believe it or not, looks a hell of a lot better. My wife said the same exact thing, of just visually appealing. When people come in the room, it's not as big. I mean, it's still a big monitor. 42 inches is still a big monitor. We obviously can't get around that, but it's a lot more feasible for most people to have this on their desk than the 48-inch that really starts to portray into like, hey, you just have a big TV monitor sitting on your desk. This kind of fits that mold a little bit more, and it fits perfectly. Obviously, it fits better on my desk. It actually had room for speakers, and it actually had room to kind of lay it out better, and it doesn't portray over my frames anymore, and it just has a better overall feel on my actual desk, so I'm super happy with it. Now granted, there wasn't really any other reason to get this monitor other than that, because the C2 is not that much better than the C1. It gets a little bit brighter, but mostly everything else is the same. The gameplay is just as fantastic as it used to be. It has all the same benefits of an OLED, you know, darker blacks, fantastic colors, all of that stuff is still there on a smaller scale for me, but it also just feels better to play because obviously now, you know, things are kind of just in my way here, and I have, a perfect view of everything, and I feel like when I'm playing on mouse and keyboard like I am right now right in front of it, I kind of have the full entire view of the screen. I don't have to move my head too much left and right because of the fact that it's a little bit smaller. So overall, this is definitely going to be the better monitor, not just for me, but I think for all you guys who are looking to get an OLED, as cheap as possible instead of getting the more expensive ones that have come out in monitor form. This LG C2 42-inch is kind of the perfect thing that I have going on with it. And then, of course, if I ever want to, I do have 165 hertz Asus monitor. Now, this is technically the monitor that I use for 3D gaming, but I also use it, as a secondary screen as well. So if I ever want to do, really want to get competitive in a certain game, I have the option of playing 165 hertz on a smaller screen. So I can just, be really, really in there. And I don't have to worry about it being such a large screen for competitive gaming. So kind of have the best of both worlds going on right here. Because I also use this TV for playing PlayStation 5 games as well. And Xbox games from the other room that I have a cable going into since it has HDMI 2.1 as well. And the same 120 hertz on here is as great as always. Obviously with the LG C2, you being able to do 120 hertz is awesome, and everything looks great on here. It makes my setup look so much better than it did before with this TV. Things kind of look way more in place. I have more room on my desk, and more importantly, it lets me game a little bit better since the inches are a little bit smaller, which technically this is the size that I always wanted. It's just that 48 was the only thing that existed. I think 42 is the exact size I want, and I don't see myself ever moving away from it. Now, granted, like I said, there wasn't really, the only reason I was able to do this is because I was able to sell my old one for a good price, but other than that, I mean, there wasn't a huge reason to upgrade, and I did get this TV at $800 on a sale. I would definitely not pay $1,400 for this TV because I would never be able to sell my old one for that much, which means that I'd be paying a crazy amount of money just to essentially downsize because there wouldn't be too many other benefits to getting the newer model. But other than that, guys, that's kind of what I wanted to tell you guys about this. I think it's a better monitor for most people, but let me go ahead and give you my final thoughts on this. Alright guys, so that was my overview on the LG C2 42-inch. Really, really happy I made the change. It makes the room look a lot better. It fits better on my desk. Now I have room for speakers, which those are still coming in. Like I said, I'm still working on the PC setup, so stay tuned for a PC setup overview. I still got to build a brand new PC. I'm still going to use the same Origin PC desktop that you see on the corner, but I'm building a completely new PC. Even though I do have a 4080 in there already, but I have to upgrade the motherboard and the CPU and stuff once I get some more money here. But the speakers are still coming, and now I actually have room to put them on the side because I didn't have room before to put speakers because the monitor took up the whole entire desk, and I was always using the PC speakers or my headphones here. But I'm excited that I now have room for that. But the 42-inch is every bit as much as I loved gaming on the LG C1. It's a little bit brighter and stuff like that, but for the most part, it's the same experience that I had before on a smaller scale, and I think it fits much, much better on the desk that I have. It fits better in the natural progression of just looking straight on and playing games like Call of Duty and stuff. It fits more, I'm not looking a little bit more like this. Now I kind of just look straight because it's 42-inch size. And it looks better overall with the fact that I have a gigantic screen that I use for like Kinect games and stuff like that in the corner over here. That just naturally fits a lot better. So I'm really, really happy that I went with the 42-inch. And glad that I got rid of the 48-inch. I love that thing, but it was definitely slightly too big for my setup. I still would recommend it to people, like I said in the beginning of the video, if you have a gigantic space that fits it and you don't have a giant TV right next to it like I did. But for me, a 42-inch works way better, and I think that's the one I would recommend to most people. Because a 42-inch is a huge monitor already. It already takes up a lot of room, and I don't think most people are going to need anything bigger than that on their actual computer desk. And you're going to get all the benefits of OLED that we talked about there in the overview and stuff. So really super happy with it, and I'm really, really glad I made the change. And if you guys have any questions about anything I showed in today's video, guys, as always, leave it down below. If not, thank you guys for watching. Till next time.